All right. Field-based training to improve change of direction. Now, a lot of times when you are talking with a sport coach and you give them kind of like your recipe, your formula for how you want to make their team better athletes, to make them better football players, to make them better lacrosse players, whatever the case may be. A lot of times, the first thing that the coach says is, how are you going to increase our speed? I want to be fast. I want to play fast. I want to play fast. I want to have the ability to run past my opponents, to not have them be as fast as us. And that's kind of like a elementary view of everything that we do from a strength and conditioning standpoint. But again, it's important. So we'll start with that. Speed. All that is, in my definition, is accelerating and then maintaining that maximum velocity. And as you can see in the top right corner, great example, two fast individuals. Now, in the sport of track and field, track in particular, it's linear speed. It's running in a straight line. Then you have your field sports, your soccer, your lacrosse, your football, and that's multi-directional speed. A lot of times you make one cut and then you're able to just accelerate, maintain that velocity past your opponent. So again, speed is a very important component of everything we do from that field training. Now, all speed is achieved through the application of force, allowing that athlete to accelerate, achieve that high velocity, and then maintain it. Now, that's accomplished through rate of force development. Applying force to the ground is how you accelerate. It's just the generation of maximal force in the shortest amount of time. Now, from a strength and conditioning standpoint, this could be accomplished in this weight room setting through power, through explosive movements, and then through also heavy compound movements. All of those incorporate into building that speed. Now, agility. Agility is a whole body movement and change of velocity or direction with a stimulus. So example right here, you're in the open field in football, you have an opponent coming at you. It's not pre-planned, all you're doing is reacting. Think of a basketball player coming up the court, he has a defender, he's trying to get by. Whereas change of direction, that's pre-planned, it's structured. You already have that idea in your head before you even go out and do that. So think like a wide receiver running a route. Wide receiver running a route, he knows, okay, 8 yards, I'm breaking this thing off, I'm pointing my left foot into the ground, and I'm accelerating at a 45-degree angle. Now, again, similar to speed, rate of force development is very important. It's a change in force divided by the change in time that it takes to actually perform that movement. Now, the ability of the neuromuscular system to increase contractile force from a low or resting level. So think about it, you're on the line of scrimmage, you're a wide receiver. This is almost like isolated position. When the ball is snapped, when it's time to go, you have to be able to contract and explode out and drive that force to the ground. Impulse also contributes. Impulse, generated force, times the time required for production. So change in impulse result in changes of the athlete's momentum and therefore ability to accelerate and decelerate. In both agility and change in direction, the connection to velocity can either be an increase or a decrease. So that could either acceleration or deceleration. Let's start right now. Acceleration. So you see this diagram right here, very similar to everything that was going on in Coach Mack's presentation on speed on running mechanics. Now, the increase in velocity is predicated upon the acceleration of the kinetic chain. So when you think kinetic chain, just think body segments, think connecting joints, think muscles, all encompassing to perform those movements that you're requiring to do. Now, the ability to accelerate depends on change of velocity, resulting in the application of external force. Kind of like constant theme like we've been talking about. Force is just kind of like a reoccurring word that I'm using here, but it's because that's all that is applying force to the ground. Now, applying force to the ground in an acceleration phase can be accomplished through, think wall drills. So what we do with football, where you're at a 45-degree angle, and then the coaching cues for this would be punch that knee up, drive that foot into the ground. Actually, coach, step on up. Let's get a demo of this. Wall drill, right there.
Can I do it over there?
You sure can.
Okay. So you go on the fridge. The fridge? Okay.
So again, with this 45-degree angle, which is similar to that angle of that gentleman right there demonstrating here, and all that is driving that knee up, punching that foot through the ground. Bang, just like that. So that's a great way where you can implement that with a large group of athletes like we do with football in the mornings in order to instruct them on the proper mechanics in order to accelerate. Now, another point of emphasis is during that foot strike, what you want to do is have that weight on the ball of your foot. Reason being, minimizes those braking forces and maximizes propulsive force, which is just, again, propulsive, just a fancy way of saying driving that ground away. Now, again, if you look at this diagram here, he's accomplishing that triple extension. So it's a knee drive while he's getting extension in that ankle, in that knee, in that hip right there. It's allowing him to drive through the ground and accelerate. And again, you see that body, that torso is at a 45-degree angle, very similar to Coach Mack's beautiful demonstration. Now, deceleration, almost the opposite, almost the complete exact opposite. It involves slowing down the body's center of mass by applying as much force to the ground as possible in order to allow a stop or a change of direction. Now, proper joint angles is important here. So we just saw that triple extension that occurred. Flexion is important here, where you're getting flexion in that ankle, in that knee, and in that hip. Also, dropping those hips to the ground, notice that lean. As opposed to a 45-degree angle, she's almost kind of like, let's call that perpendicular with the ground here. Coaching. What you want to do is, when, as opposed to having the ball of your foot driving through the ground, you want your weight on your heels. So the exact opposite. You want those braking forces. You want to reduce those propulsive forces. And you want to just be able to get to that standstill position as fast as possible. Now, ground contact will gradually increase, which again, the complete opposite in acceleration. During the early steps in your acceleration, you spend a lot of time on the ground. As you start to accelerate, you achieve that maximum velocity, you spend less time on the ground. With deceleration, it's the complete opposite. Just think, if you're sprinting out and you're trying to stop, the closer you get to that full deceleration, the longer your foot's going to stay onto the ground. And again, it's kind of like a common theme here. The NSCA says if you're at a half-speed position, you should be able to decelerate fully in about 3 steps. And then if you're running about 75% of maximum velocity, it should be about 5 steps to fully decelerate. And then if it's full speed, they say it should take you about 7 steps to come to a full stop. Stretch, shortening, and cycling. We got a beautiful demo right here of Ralph on the track team just exploding, getting his head to the ceiling. Now, again, this is important because it's kind of like, in order to really coach up everything that you need to do, you have to understand the exercise science behind it, the kinesiology, the physiology. So stretch, shortening, cycling. The eccentric concentric coupling phenomenon, which muscle tendon complexes are rapidly and forcibly lengthened or stretch loaded and immediately shortened in a reactive or elastic manner. So that's that rapid transition from the eccentric action to concentric. So in between those, you have your amortization phase. So think, an example that I'll give here is just a counter movement jump. So think on a counter movement jump. You're here, coming down. As I'm coming down, it's that eccentric phase. Muscles being lengthened. From here, that pause in between the eccentric and the concentrics, that's when that amortization phase comes in. That's when that strength shortening cycle kicks in. And that's stored energy. So there's 2 real components to that I want to touch on here. The neurophysiological. As the muscle lengthens, so sinking down into that, almost like quarter squat in a counter movement jump, that's that eccentric phase here. As the muscle lengthens through that, muscle spindle fibers are stretched. Now, once that occurs, that signal travels up into your brain and sends a signal back down into that agonist muscle to contract. So again, that transition from eccentric to concentric. Now the mechanical, stretching of tendons and connective tissue while this occurs. So think again, I'm in this counter movement position, I'm coming down, those tendons are firing. As I explode up, that's that transition, that stretch shortening cycle kicks in. Now, in order to develop this, I think the best way to do it is through plyometrics. So think like depth jumps, where a depth jump, you're stepping off of a box, it's forcing short ground contact time, it's reactive, it's fast, it's explosive. It's that short transition from eccentric to concentric. You hit that ground, muscles lengthen, short ground contact time, and then explode up through a concentric phase. Again, counter movement jump, like I just used for the demonstration, and then plyometrics, whatever the case may be. Now, the important part with that, especially if you're implementing it with a team, is these are very intense, taxing movements. So you don't want to just have them perform 8 depth jumps in a row. That's going to kill their CNS, and that's going to put them in a place where they could potentially be injured. So make sure you're allowing proper rest time in between those repetitions. And again, a great way to do this too is complex training. So post-activation potentiation is something that we do with football, something I'm doing with lacrosse, and all that idea is where you're doing a compound movement, whether that's a deadlift, split squat, back squat, bench press, and you're pairing it with a plyometric, like it could be a depth jump, it could be an explosive push-up, something to get that system firing. Moving on. Now, how do we implement this? So whenever I'm trying to think about how to improve any field-based training for a team, try to work backwards. So understand what that sport demands you to do. So for the example I'll give here is football. You dive into just the science of football and what it is from a 30,000 foot view, and all it is 5 to 6 seconds of work in a play with 31 to 35 seconds of rest in between. So in my opinion, the best way to implement this in field-based training is to just replicate that. So you'll have a rep where it could be, we'll get into a variety of different drills that you can use to try to improve change of direction, improve agility. But that best way to just kind of mimic that is just think, if you have the example I'll give here, 4 stations with 15 plays at each. You have your athletes lined up. There's 4 different stations. Say you have 50 athletes on the field. Each one of those drills has about 20 athletes at each station. You go to the back of the line. If guys are flowing through it, chances are that's natural built-in rest. You'll have your rep. It'll be performed in 6 seconds. You're on the back of the line. By the time you get to the front of the line to perform that drill again, it's kind of like that same allotted time. 30 seconds has probably gone by. You're ready to go again. Just try to mimic the sport best you can here. And then in another facet of that, the way you implement it is I just love competitions. I love competing. It's a lot of fun as a strength coach to be able to get excited, to get hyped up. You have guys competing against each other. Their energy levels are high. Their natural instincts kick in. And you can compete in a variety of ways. The one way you can compete, have them compete against themselves, or just time every single rep. Chances are, if they're being timed, if they know they're being timed, they're going to try to give 100% effort because they know there's a quantifiable number attached to that. And then again, if they don't perform to the best of their ability based on that number, then it's that self-reflection. What did I do leading up to this? What did I do in my preparation? What did I do that didn't allow me to perform this drill as well as I did last week? So it's just that constant feedback form. And then face off against teammates. Guys love competing against each other. And that happens on the field. They're competing for roster spots. They're competing for playing time. They may as well get used to competing on a training platform. So we're going to compete right now. Coach, can I have you up? Trev, can I have you up? So one of my favorite ways to do this is called a shadow drill. So the way that this works is coach will be standing, let's go MC on rack 6. So what's going to happen here is picture I'm out on the field. You face me. You stand right now. So 5-yard line, 5-yard line, 10 yards separating that. Now the way this works is I'm just in this position and I'm just trying to make a move to get separation from my opponent. Just like think I'm a wide receiver trying to get separation from a DB. So it's about 5 to 6 cuts. After that, coach will point to a direction where I'm running. Now again, the whole goal is I'm trying to get Trevor off his feet, get him moving, get him panicking. So then when that point happens, I'm able to accelerate and get some distance from it. So let's see how quick Trevor's feet are here. Coach, I need it. Let's get it. 3, 2, 1, go. Give me about 4, 5, 6 cuts, and then give me direction for points.
3, 2, 1, go. Go, Trev.
So the way that you can measure if you win or lose is if you have think about a breakaway harness. So I'm wearing a harness that's on a Velcro. He's wearing a harness on a Velcro. About 3 yards separating the two. If I'm the one who's making the moves and I'm able to break away from that harness, it's a win for me. If he's able to keep up with me and keep that harness intact, it's a win for him. So again, my whole thing with this is you can get better and also make this thing fun. You can get better and also have this be an engaging way for these athletes to really look forward to these sessions. And if you have athletes looking forward to those sessions, chances are they'll probably get better effort. They get better effort, they'll get better. They get better, you look better. Now, this is just some stuff that I've done with lacrosse team. So top left, you go Z drill. I'm sure all of you have seen that before. Z drill is all it is 3 steps, plant that foot, or that's how I coach it, plant that foot. Now, make it specific to the population you're working with. If you see here, you sprint up to that first cone, From there, again, plant your foot in the ground, plant your foot in the ground. That last cone, you're sprinting out of it. Now, when I'm working with the lacrosse population, we have our attack guys, and then we have our defense. Now, the way I make that sport specific is I have 3 guys at the end of that drill. Now, that first guy up will make a move laterally. If you're in attack, you make a move off of him, whether that's a spin, whether that's a juke, whether that's a hezzy hey, just trying to replicate what they do on the field. Now, if you're defense, you come out of that last cone, and that guy moving laterally, you attack him, just like you do on cross, you're closing out on the play. So again, ways to make it fun, a way to make it engaging, and way to make it like you actually are doing things that are going to replicate what they're doing on the field. Another one, T drill. So you have it set up. Now I have those 4 cones mirroring each other. So again, easy way to compete. All that is kind of like a pro agility with a 5-yard sprint up to it. So I'll show you a video later on, you'll see what that looks like. But again, the way I like to do it is have that competition built in. So you have, let's say, 5 guys behind each cone. So 5 guys, 5 guys, 5 guys will go on, 5 guys on the 15. You going 2 reps each direction. The first group to finish out wins. And again, consequences for losers, whether that's up, downs, or the whistle get them chopping, whistle, burpee, you're up, whistle, burpee, you're up, or maybe that's clean up the entire field. But again, that built-in competition allows them to just give that much more of an effort during those drills. Grid drill. I like the grid drill because again, it just kind of replicates what you do on the field. Think football, 1 to 2 to 3 cuts per play. And that's all this is. And you can excuse my hand right now. This is kind of tough to draw on a computer mouse. But all that is just kind of get creative with it. So they just, and again, this is the way I like to do it, is I'll print this sheet out and I'll show it to the first guy online. Let's say there's 10 guys online, only the first person gets to see that sheet. So everybody else that's following him has to pay attention to what he's doing. So again, it increases that focus. And then the last one, that box drill. So they'll start right where that W is, sprint out, shuffle, backpedal, sprint. Again, in sports, there's a lot of demands for just changing the way that you're moving your body. So a lot of times it's not just, unless you all running track, it's not just a linear sprint. You have to shuffle, you have to be able to backpedal, you have to be able to do this very, very quickly. So a little coordination, and then just a little, again, change of a stimulus here. So let's see what that actually looks like. So this is T drill here. And again, next person goes as soon as they cross their face. And these 2 teams are just competing against each other here. So again, just a fun way where these guys are built in competition. And, all right, thanks, Dan. All right, last one. Now again, I talked about letting this be fun and just keeping this engaging. So one of the things that I like to do here is at the end of a session, we'll just have guys lying on their back, tennis ball, got to run up, drop it on the cone, and come on back. And again, what I like to do here, offense on one side, defense on the other side. You have that just like engaging entertainment value because the entire defense, which is like 25 guys, are rooting for their guy. 25 guys on the offensive end are rooting for their guy. And then from here, it's just loud, it's energetic, and it's fun, and it's competition. So that's all that this looks like. Simple. So you can get creative with it. That's just things that I do, but just like never let like just fundamental aspects of strength and conditioning stop you from number 1, accomplishing your goal, number 1, making this thing enjoyable for your athletes, and then number 3, just getting them better. So that's all I got for you guys. Some